Games, board games, board games. We might be talking about board games, but we're not gonna shout. Sometimes when we want to make something, it seems like we always want to shout and scream. So we're talking about board games, struggles. That's what we're talking about. But board game struggles, we're not gonna shout. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. 10 a.m. ish UK time. Time for Busy Beats and Board Game Blether, episode 889. I think that might have got slightly mangled, but yes, it's not just episode 89. That would be weird. But,
Yes, and also 4 Bs instead of 3. It's getting a no. Hang on.
that's what's happened.
Yeah.
Did I put in a 4B? Okay.
No. Oh, I'm not quite sure. I don't know if you've got the
No,
right
Busy
number of
Beats and
Bs or
Board Game
not.
Blether. There are always 4Bs.
There are always the right number of Bs. Okay, it's just
So,
missing an
yeah,
8.
what it says is that I got no wait. Yeah, I got myself confused because bees look a bit like an 8, and yeah. Anyway, I thought even going to bother changing it because the point says I think that we struggle with a lot of things, and sometimes it's worth just saying, you know what, this isn't the main thing. Like the truth is, as much as like if I had a sponsored show, or if I were like, okay, this is going to be a big thing, or if like for some reason I had like thousands of viewers where I was like, okay, this is going to be the main thing that I'm going to do, then I'd probably be a little bit more fastidious. But as it is, I think sometimes, whether it's to do with here or sometimes to do with, hey, I can't work out a cover for this game, sometimes it's worth just saying, well, I'm not going to do it because this is like a first edition Busy bargain bag and limited to 50 copies. So sure, it looks a bit overly similar to a game about writing words aiming to match other folk exactly 3 times, which is just written in my own handwriting font that I initially drew. So it is my handwriting, but it's not, I like the ones where they've got a tiny bit of illustration. And sometimes it's worth just saying, hey, this is fine, it doesn't need to be done. But sometimes there is something that we need to do and we're struggling with. But Jess, how do you feel about this topic? And before we get any further, is there anything you'd like people to know about you right now?
Oh, no. I'm feeling quite tired, but that's, normal.
Okay.
Struggling is definitely a good topic because there are always things which people are struggling with, and there are always things where they just, for me, it's things that just go to the bottom of the priority list and they sit on the list and they just don't get done.
And that's not just because they're not important, but sometimes because we put it off for like, hey, I don't want, like subconsciously, you just don't want to do the thing. You just don't want to get this started, right?
Sometimes it's not just subconsciously. Sometimes I know I don't want to do the thing. But yeah, absolutely. There are things where it's just harder to do it. And sometimes they're really easy things, but there's a bit of a mental block there. And you're like, I just don't want to do that. There are a number of emails I haven't opened because I'm like, I just don't want to get into that discussion. And, and I do, but it takes me a couple of days to, to sort of psych myself up and say, okay, right, I've got to talk about this. Shipping is the thing which I'm avoiding on emails. It's fine. It's just that it's not. Yeah.
And
The
this
whole
is
thing is too
kind of
complicated.
like a necessary road bump because let's be honest, like logistics, like all of these things are possible road bumps. I mean, there are speed barriers and they can slow you down and you need the skills. I mean, I don't know if there's any race car drivers who would actually go full pelt over one of these things, but maybe there's some technique for if you've done enough of these, like you've got someone dedicated to that, but especially when it's you on your own and this is not your form of passion, you're not interested in logistics, you're not interested in this minutia. And so eventually when you get to that feeling, you've got this almost feeling of, hey, I've done it all, but wait, there's this tiny bit more. You've done all the fun stuff. Your passion for the project has slightly dissipated, but you've got to finish it and do all the rubbish stuff to get it out there.
Yeah, and it depends, because for different people that's going to be different things. For me, then I am not very. Then I am much better at something when it's just me doing it. So I'm not very good at talking to other people and making sure that we're all doing it all at exactly the same time. It's that kind of constant keeping in touch with people that is really hard for me. I'm fine with something like a newsletter because it's like, hey, it's a newsletter. It goes out once a month or, once or whatever. That's fine. But it's that kind of, oh, you've just got to email so and so and let so and so know, and that's what grinds me down personally.
I feel like we've been really missing a trick, because what we really should be doing is helping each other with our to-do lists, although I worried that like once every 2 weeks might just not be enough for me. And I have been pondering, asking a bunch of, hey everyone on Facebook, are you interested in like helping me be accountable? Because the truth is, yes, I need that daily to-do list. I need to be thinking, not just I need to do this broadly within the next 2 weeks, because otherwise I would end up doing it all on the Tuesday before we met, as much of it as I could. It needs to be a case of, okay, I've arranged, this is what I'm going to do, maybe not even this day, but roughly this hour, and hopefully I'll get it done, even if it's like slightly late. I'm just going to preface this by saying the thing that I've been really struggling with for a long time, since like early December, is just getting stuff posted. I say just, I shouldn't have used that word, because things can, but getting stuff posted, thinking, okay, I don't have a thorough stock system, so I don't think there's anything confidential here. So this is a bunch of envelopes here. This is like a bunch of games in this box. There's games in those other boxes, and that's like about as organized a filing system as I ever have. Like usually those boxes are like there. Do you know what I mean?
But to be honest,
so if
you
it
don't
was
necessarily
all
need
a
it to
little
be
bit
that organized.
better, first I've got to sort everything. Then I've got to go through the orders and say, okay, this is what's going. If I break it down, it's really not that hard, but it feels like, okay, I've got a few more orders. Okay, how do I even start with this? And then I just and if I've been sick for a bit, then coming back to it is a real psychological barrier, and I don't know why. But I'm going to give you the end of the story. In the end, I managed to do it yesterday. Someone was coming over yesterday initially for playtesting, so they would come over. I'd playtest their thing for a couple of hours. They'd playtest my thing for a couple of hours, and I suggested I make dinner. On Sunday, I told them and someone else that I've been really struggling with this thing, and he said, well, on Tuesday, maybe I can help you with that. And I said, yeah, sure, hopefully I'll have it done by then, but if not, yes, that would be massively appreciated. And sure enough, I didn't have it done between basically Sunday evening and Tuesday. So what happened was like, okay, as the time came on, like we play tested our thing, we had dinner, and like I was thinking, like, I'm really dreading this, but we managed to power through it. So I was like, okay. And then it took a while, and at the end, like there was one last thing out of 25 that I packed myself that they left, and I posted it all just this morning, which is why I was running a little bit late, Jess, and just dropped it off, all prepaid, ran back, and now it's done. And I'm not saying that it was easy, and the truth is, like, because it was so late, so lots of all of those things that I sent off, I put in a little message to say, I'm sorry it's so late, and here's a freebie. And I listened to this other podcast where people say, oh, if you make a mistake with someone, try to make them happy that you made a mistake. Like it's a case of, wow, they overcorrected so much. We hope they make more mistakes. And that leaves a really good impression. And the truth is, like, I probably didn't make any profits on like the stuff that I sent out, but conversely, all of those people are hopefully now going to be happy. And rather than being a case of, oh, I hate Bez, I ordered something before Christmas and she didn't even ship it until halfway through January, fingers crossed a few of them might be, hey, Bez really dropped the ball, but she's good and she actually gets stuff done and she made up for it. And I'm still going to support Bez. And that's the hope.
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you miss the opportunity and you're like, okay, we can't catch up. So then you've got to sort of think, okay, what would be best? Would it be doing something little extra? Would it be just making sure I can do these last things the best they can be? And I know what that's like when you've got postage, because when you're posting things, there's lots of little steps to each of it. You've got to actually pack. Well, you've got to, work out what's in each order. Then you've got to pack them. Then the address labels. And I don't know whether you use the click and drop system.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's, and that works. But it means you've got to go into the Royal Mail website for each one, and you've got to, put in the address. And it just, when you've got a lot of them, then it gets really repetitive and really tiresome, and then you're sticking them on and I personally print them all out on paper. So then I've got to sellotape them on. Yeah. Yeah. And it just, and you think, not another one. When I had my last.
Do you use just 2 bits on each side, or do you sometimes do all 4 sides?
So it depends what I'm packaging. Generally, I do all 4 sides, but they don't necessarily always meet. Sometimes it's like 2 little bits and then bigger bits. When I'm doing a bigger box, so when I'm sending out a game in a box, then I've got 2-part cardboard boxes. Or rather, I've got, there are a set of bigger boxes I've got, and I cut them in half, so I make them into a box, cut them in half, and then put one half on top of the other so that one sort of goes inside the other, because it gives it more protection and I don't need to use as much there. But then that means that when I stick the label on, the 2 longer bits I put all the way around the box so that it holds them together, which works really well. But it's just, time and time again, it's okay, now this, then this, then this.
But yeah, the details don't matter. But yeah, I guess that brings us into our recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights, recent highlights. So as I said, I had Doric over. I'm trying to remember. Oh yes, I actually had a lovely day yesterday. So firstly, I talked to Ori Kagan, and I actually touched upon this issue yesterday. So if people want to talk about me lamenting about postage and my struggles, you can also listen to that. Have you played Time Stories?
I haven't. I have not.
So I played the prologue to Time Stories. Let me just grab it because it's not too far away. So this is the Santo Tomas de Aquino. So we played this, I think, 2 weeks ago, myself and my friend. And this is a relatively small deck. This is intended to be playable in like a 1-hour demo setting. That's after 1 hour at a convention. Someone could put this in front of you and get you through it, and you would feel like, okay, I've had a taste of the game. I know what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And then, whereas the full expansions are like about 3 times the size. So we played this, and then we're like, okay, are we really enjoying this? Would you like to carry on, or should I just play them solo? Because the game is meant to be for 2 to 4 players. And so we decided that we're going to give it a proper go. So we've played the Brotherhood of the Brotherhood of the Coast. There we go. So in this chapter, you've gone back in time. You're some people in the far-flung future. You're able to go back to time, embody other people, and be like, okay, now we're adventuring, we're making decisions. You start off with multiple characters, and you've got to choose, okay, which characters do we keep, which characters do we not keep, because there's more than 4. So that's a kind of interesting decision. Which skills are we going to focus on? Combat, or are we going to focus on naval combat, or searching, or buying people? Lady Dolores has a lot of gold. That might be good, and maybe someone respectable in your party. I don't know. And we played through these. As I say, we played it either 2 or 3 times over the course of about 3 hours, and we're halfway through it. It's a one-play thing, but the whole gimmick of Time Stories is that you play it through, and then you kind of reset it. It's a half reset. So you keep some bits, and then you play it through, and then eventually you realize, okay, I know exactly how to do it. That bit of the game can be skipped, and that bit it's kind of like, it's a game of memory and light puzzles, I would say. But the truth is that the whole 2-player let's communicate with each other thing, for me, doesn't quite work. And I don't understand why they said this is 2 to 4 players, because sure, the idea is that you've got these cards and then you're paraphrasing them to each other, but having a card and then here's some text, put it into your own words, that's not really role-playing. That's not really something that I choose, feel like I'm having that much agency with my other friend. I feel like, sure, the discussion about what to do is kind of interesting, but it's not the most engaging puzzles, and the story feels like I would get obviously any game I enjoy more with other people, but I'll report more when I've finished it. But it feels like I would get 90% of the joy from it by playing it on my own, and that's how I felt about it. It didn't feel like the cards were all a joy to behold. It felt like they were like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I wonder what's going on here. Okay, we've got this, which gives me that or that. It's kind of like a game book, like, Fighting Fantasy or one of those things. But it never, with puzzles in it, but it never felt like, wow, we're really working together. I'm really expressing my character. It never felt like there were really opportunities to do that.
Did you feel that the game needed to, provide more opportunities for that sort of, performative bit? Did it just not have enough chances? Did it not give you enough prompts, or were there just not enough times when it was possible for you to, I don't know, do something interesting? Was it too constraining, maybe?
It felt like, fundamentally, the game is the cards. If you look at it from a dry mechanical point of view, the cards give you information, and you've got to do the right cards in the right order, because sometimes the cards give you little bonuses or give you little items, and then when you go somewhere else, you need to have that particular. When I say information, some of the information just know as a human, as a player, but some of the information is recorded as little tokens to say, hey, you know this. And when you start the game, you don't know what these tokens represent, but it will be like, oh, okay, now you know, and I'm going to say something that's not in the game just to avoid spoilers. Now you know where the unicorn flies over the road. And so now you know the starting point of the unicorn magical road, which totally isn't in the game because it's a game about pirates. You are, you get this token, and now if you go near that road, then if you've got this item, then you turn over this other card which says you hunt in the specific spot you've been told about, and you find the secret magical unicorn road. So it's a game of remembering what's important. Maybe on the card it says, oh, this captain's doing this, so you use that information for later on. But there never seemed to be an advantage or an incentive to put things into your own words. If I've got a paragraph of text, to rephrase it is an effort, and to rephrase it in my character's voice is weird. And also, you're not even really role-playing these characters. You're really role-playing anonymous people from the future who have nothing said about them, and then the anonymous people from the future are embodying these bodies of people. So it's not even as if I should be, if I really get into the theme, I don't even feel like I should be role-playing Lady Dolores, because I'm not really, as a player, I'm not playing the character of Lady Dolores. I'm playing the character of a person who's playing the character of Lady Dolores in their past, which is really weird.
So I've got a quick question based on all that, which is, so have you played the Pandemic Legacy games?
Yes.
Did you find a similar thing with that? Because I'm thinking that a lot of those cards have, text and new information, so it's a different game, of course. It's less game booky, it's more, you're uncovering things, and and I'm just wondering whether you felt the same thing with the characters, because again, they're not as fleshed out as you would have in a role-playing game there.
I don't think the problem is the lack of background. I think that the problem is the lack of okay, to use this word that I can't think of a better way to express it right now, but someone in the video game space talks about juiciness. The point being, let's say you press a button and then you see stuff happens. But then if you want the game to be juicy, have more graphics, whizzy stuff happening. So let's, you don't just show that two balls are connected by having them visibly touching. If you want to make a game sticky balls with, then have the balls connecting, but have like a little spark, have like a little light to emanate, but also have a bit of sound. And they talks about the number of times that you do something and the amount of output that you get. It's kind of an input to output ratio. And if I'm playing a real role-playing game where where that's the game, like it's all about the story, and this story can go literally anywhere. I decide that for some reason my character is really angry, and then we're able to turn that into the story. Maybe my personal story, every interaction that I have is my character being angry, and that is no more not the story than someone else who's going through it, assuming the character is prone to being, you know what I mean? You can make that your own.
Yeah.
But conversely, there is a very distinct, you are going to go down this path. So it doesn't leave enough room for you to really express yourself in time stories, is what I would say is the problem for me. And when I played Pandemic Legacy, one of our players, my ex-housemate, wasn't really engaging with the mechanics, but I would say they were engaging with some role-playing which was completely unrelated to the game. And I didn't engage with that part of the game, but it was kind of amusing hearing her kind of talking about, oh yes, I'm here because blah blah. Oh, my poor sister. Oh no, she's so this, and nothing in the game invalidated anything that she said, and I think that's the key thing. Because if the game is going to invalidate something that you said, then I'm not going to start doing it in the first place. Like, as a broad example, if I want to create pretty patterns in Go, and I want to create the shape of a flower, well, that's going to be invalidated by the opponent taking those pieces, so I'm not going to do it, which is fair enough, because it's not meant to be a game about making pretty patterns. It's a game about... But if you want the game to be about that, then you shouldn't get... The game gets its own way. And I actually think that for me, Pandemic Legacy was far better because there wasn't as much, because there was just the merest hint of it. It was put your name here, and that's pretty much all there was. Sure, there's like, hey, you're in this relationship, you are siblings, or you are, and you see all those right at the start, so it's not a spoiler. And anything that came later, it was like the merest hint of role-playing to my mind. And it just gave you a very loose framework that would, again, never invalidate anything you'd done. And I could engage with that game through pure mechanics, or someone else could engage for it through role-playing. Whereas this game, I feel like, there's enough going in on your minds that it doesn't quite mesh for me. And what I'm really learning as a designer, after this, it's likely that myself and Kerry, we won't play through the others, but I will probably play through everything else, because I bought it as one big bundle to play through and then pass it on, and I want to learn it. And it's a fairly nice, story time, sit down for a day, like if you're taking a day off and we're going to like play through this thing a bunch of times and learn, explore this world. It's pleasant, but I just see no reason why it's multiplayer, and I think that just seems really, really weird to me. That's basically anyway. Yeah, basically the rest of it was playtesting with Doric and getting stuff posted and eating food. But yeah, that was me. And what are some of your own recent highlights?
Oh! I was just looking through my Twitter. So on Monday, then a company I had done some greetings cards for sent their cards out.
Nice.
So I did some work over the Christmas period for the Chester Sexual Abuse Support Services, which is basically part of the local council, which is in Cheshire, and did a greetings card for them to send to their supporters and to send to people who they felt really needed a bit of a cheering up during January, which was really lovely. So worked on this over the Christmas period for them, and it was just really nice, actually. So the basic design, the drawing was something which I've been playing around with before, but hadn't actually found a chance to use it. Spoke to them, and they said, actually, we want a card that's about, something nice, like, how about flowers and something colorful. And I said, aha, I have just the thing. Let's see if we can make this into a game. So I made it into a solo game. So on this game, you've got, so you need a pencil or a pen, you need a couple of dice, and you need something small like a button. And the aim is that you have to provide all of the different potted flowers with the water and the sunlight that they need before the bumblebees wake up. So bumblebees hibernate. Honeybees don't generally, but bumblebees do. So basically, you roll your 2 dice. You have to match the 2 results to the 2 little. You see, there's 2 little rows on each flower. You obviously, there's an element of luck there, of course. The first few times you're like, okay, right, I'm going to match that one to that one, or that one to that one. But every time you roll, the little object, the bumblebee, moves 1 more along the track. You can re-roll, because of course, sometimes you won't be able to match them. You can re-roll just 1 of your dice, but again, the bumblebee rolls. So basically the strategy lies there with trying to match the hardest flowers first, trying to work out which of your 2 dice you want to re-roll and which number you want to keep and which you want to re-roll. So yeah, that's the game, and it's a fairly simple, straightforward solo game, and it seems to have gone down really well. So I'm really pleased with that.
Congratulations, and that's lovely. Presumably this came about because of how they clearly knew that you'd made previous greeting cards games. How did they discover you? Was it through Kickstarter or?
So the person who runs it is somebody I know, not very well. Think I've only met her in person a couple of times. But we have friends in common, and she said, oh, I've looked at some of the things you've done, been following on Twitter, following on Facebook, and I thought, oh, that's really, that's great. Wasn't expecting her to call and say, can we do something? But it's really nice because, they needed some thank you cards and some cheering up cards. And I think actually there are probably quite a lot of organizations, that have corporate cards. I got a couple of corporate Christmas cards this year, for example, from organizations. And it's like, oh, actually, this might be a possible market. So I might think about investigating that a bit more.
Yeah, I think that if you're able to do these kinds of things for clients, actually on Friday, when I did my Web of Love game, again, minor achievements I did.
Mhm.
It was early on Monday morning, and it should have been late Sunday night, really. But I did apply to now play this. So my game that's now called Heartstrings, it's a game about physically manifesting the connections between everyone, represented by a literal ball of wool, before you cut them away to represent the differences you have, and then finally cutting everything away to remind you that you're individual people, but the strands of connections remain. Anyway, someone said, "Oh, this seems like a really cool thing," and they talked to me about my idea for mega party games, and they said, "Oh yeah, you should really explore this on a corporate thing, because for sure that is something where, yeah, in terms of making money, that's going to do a lot better." But yeah, I would like to move on, because we, as often we do, we've gone on lots of tangents, and let's talk about brilliant thing. Brilliant thing. What's the little thing which is brilliant? I'm going to quickly shout out for pen lids. No, just putting the lids on your pen stops them being dried up. I think that also it stops them marking other things. With this, I wouldn't want to put this in my pocket, because my pockets are not black. Well, I don't have pockets right now, but normally if I have pockets, they'll normally be red. And I don't want black marker on my red pockets. Boom. Now it's not going. You see, I'm not making any marks on my hand. Amazing.
Yay!
I think it's just an amazing invention. And the fact that it fits so snugly, it's airtight. That is brilliant. Do you have anything to say about pen lids?
I think pen lids are great. There are some pens that don't have lids, but they normally have pen push buttons. So this one has one of those, and it's like, actually, that's useful in some ways. And well, so yes, you could accidentally push it, and then you've got a pen that's pointing out. But on the other hand, you could also lose a pen lid. So
on the
sort
other
of
hand,
way.
the pen lid might be better at keeping it from drying out. Because the ones with the holes have that. But anyway, let's move on. As always, to the main topic. Please, everyone who's watching this, feel free to comment, ask questions from like, follow. I do try to give people the benefits of doubt, and I do reply to everything that is a respectful comment or question. So, yeah, struggles. I've already talked about my struggles. I struggle to get stuff posted, and sometimes I just struggle to get stuff finished. And for me, the big thing that helps is other people, having someone else around. And in the past, what helped, and right now, what might help, I'm going to say that in the past, the thing that I can remember being like, wow, this is way too much, was in 2019 for Kitty Cataclysm and Whitbull Plus Plus Deluxe, as it was known back then. It's the second edition L deck in a nice little box. I don't have it within arm's reach, but I was struggling doing this, and a lot of it was just down to the final step, the getting it scanned in, having that, doing the graphic design, and by hiring Denim to do it, having them come in on a particular day to scan in the stuff meant that I knew, I better have drawn all this stuff, otherwise they'll come over and I'll have to pay them, and there will be as much for them to do. And so it encouraged me to get it done. They helped me do the thing. And since then, Denim became a bit more unreliable, let's say, because they're an actor, and so that's a very unreliable career. And so it's not really compatible with someone who needs you to come in. I need you reliably. I need, whether it's once a week or once every 2 weeks. It became a case of I need someone to be a sounding board and someone else to be in my life. Chris was brilliant, but at this point, since Chris has left, I don't really have that. So what I'm thinking is I've made an account on a website called Workaway, where you invite people to come into your house and sleep and potentially feed them in exchange for some sort of help. And the other thing that I'm going to do is and that's a possible way that someone might be here and help me post stuff and get stuff done, because I would not have finished posting stuff by now if it hadn't been for Doric last night. And the other thing that I'm planning to do is go to the library. I don't know how much it is, but you can spend a couple of quid and get a little advert, one of those business cards, and you just write something. And I'm going to write that, I need someone to come over for it might just be a few hours a week, but I want it to be like a regular thing, and say, yes, I need someone. And sure, if I find someone who's also able to help me with basic stuff like around the house, then that would be great. It's a bit of cleaning, but yet priority is when I've got stuff to post, that is the first thing that we do together, and that would be great. And work out what's a reasonable rate and whatnot there. So that's what has worked for me in the past and the solution that I'm working towards. Do you have any quick responses or questions based on that?
That sounds like what sort of... So it sounds like what's going to solve the issue you have.
I wouldn't say I know, but I have a strong hope.
Yeah, you have a suspicion, that So it sounds which is a great start, because sometimes you have struggles with things and you just don't know what the first step is. You're sitting there and you're going, actually, I have no idea how to get around this.
And it doesn't mean that it'll make it all a breeze. It just means it'll make it manageable. I don't want to overstate it.
Yeah, but I mean, struggles I think are often
Alex.
little things. Hi, Alex. Little things where it's like, actually, this is it. Struggles seem to me to be made up of many small things, rather than one huge thing. So they often are manageable, but it is a really good start to actually know what sort of thing is going to be able to manage that. Being able to evaluate it and saying, actually, I've analyzed this problem and I think that, that the issue is really this. Because sometimes the root cause is something else completely. Sometimes the root cause is not, just that you have lots of stuff to post. It's that you are, I don't know, perhaps you're not so good at doing multi-part tasks. I'm not so good at doing those, for example, or things like that, where you need to find somebody whose skill lies in doing those multi-part things instead of the single, one big thing.
I think that it's, for me, yes, it helps that Doric was here and we were two people, and I asked Doric, okay, can you please do this, put this through Royal Mail? And I showed him how to do the first one, and they were like, okay, sure, like Doric's a coder, Doric's an intelligent person, they picked it up like that. And then it was like, okay, while we're sorting it out, here's what you need to do for each one. And, we were working together, and there's a little bit of a production line because, at a certain point, it's like, okay, you need to put in this, and you need, okay, let me get the games ready on the side for each one, and then you just chuck them in. And at least I need to focus on less, and I can focus on doing one thing for all of them. It's like that sort of batch processing does make it easier, but it's also about the clear, immediate requirement to do it right bloody now. And if you don't do it right now, it's way less likely to get done tomorrow. And I think that's the kind of key thing. And for me, having the external feedback and the motivation, which takes me back to what I was saying at the start of, I've on Facebook, I'm not sure exactly how it works, but you can have like a group of friends that you only show certain stuff to this small group. And then you can say, hey, everyone, I need some people to help me be accountable. If you would be willing to be part of that group, then please join this. And if I haven't posted in a couple of days, please chase me up because something is going wrong in my life. And so if
that can be really useful. Do you find that having other people involved really helps?
100%. That's the biggest difference for me. Like, if I'm going somewhere to playtest, then it's like Alex uses this quote of "I love deadlines. I like the whooshing sound they make as they fly by." But for me, like, if it wasn't for deadlines, I just wouldn't get anything done. Like, sure, I've gone into the fact that I don't think that releasing one game at every convention, which I didn't actually release anything brand new at Dragonmeet, but I did release two things. The previous convention, which was only attended by like a couple of hundred
Not
people,
very many
and most
people.
of them were there for the LARPs, and I only got to play games with like 24 of them. So it was as if I had like, but yeah, that's the point. Like, releasing two new games at that convention was a bit of a letdown. But the fact that I had to do it by then meant that I got it done. If I hadn't been aiming for that, I wouldn't have gotten like 10 or however many games done last year. I wouldn't, if I didn't feel like I have
Which
to do
was a
this for
huge
August the 1st.
achievement.
Thank you. And like, you know, tonight I'm going to be chatting with Kirsten Lunda about Questable. And the truth is, yes, I've got playtest reports from Friday last week that it would have been good for me to type up, but I'll do that at some point before we sleep. I mean, before we speak, while Kirsten is probably sleeping because she's based in New Zealand.
Yeah.
But whilst you know, it is better late than never because we get to hear each other's things, and then that's the moment where we're like, we've caught up, we've checked that there's nothing else to say. Okay, great, we are on the same page, and we're probably going to have a lot to talk about. But yeah, it's that deadline accountability to someone else is what gets me going. Being with someone else in the same room does get me energized. And frankly, talking to you right now, I am feeling more energized right now compared to if I was just in my own place. Do you know what I mean?
That is a really good sign. Yeah. I mean, that's, you know, for a lot of people, you know, talking to people does energize them. You know, for me, it reminds me of things I have to do, which is kind of useful.
But yeah, let's talk about you a bit. What are some things that you've struggled with in the past and how did you solve them? Let's start there.
So I find that making lists really helps. I have a lot of lists all here. And this is my current list, which has very little
Can I make that bigger? I'm trying to read it.
So most of those things. Oh no!
There we go.
There we go. Most of those things are games related. There are a couple of them which are related to Unlock Democracy. How do I keep my lists organized? With a clothes peg. So when I've done the things, then I fill in the little box. So it starts out with an unfilled in box, and then it gets a filled in box, and sometimes the box is half filled in. But I find that lists really help because I am quite good at one big project, but if I've got lots of little things, then they just end up getting missed and forgotten. They are serious lists here. You know, so I do find that it's really, really easy for me to forget things, you know, if I don't list them. But the other, you know, so that's a fairly straightforward, you know, thing. Just, you know, remembering to do it.
You found that this all then eventually gets done because presumably when you fill it in, you feel a little buzz of, I don't know what chemicals, your serotonin or whatever, and
something like that.
You see it and you feel a bit of gratification, and if it's half done, that's a quick visual reminder. Maybe it's dopamine, and then you see, like,
but it's something where it's like,
done,
okay,
but I've done something,
I've completed
and I need to finish it.
It feels so much better to have a list that's mainly done rather than a list that's completely. I mean, you know, quite often I actually take the last couple of things that haven't been done and move them onto a new list, you know, so sometimes I don't quite finish it, but I'm not really after the whole sense of yay, I've done the whole thing on the list, because I know that lists move and change and whatever.
And
The
it's good that you've built some
yeah.
flexibility into the system, because like earlier, sometimes you see this as a thing that needs to be done, and then you think, well, maybe it didn't need to be done. Maybe I can just ignore it. Like sometimes it is better late than never, but sometimes it's a case of, well, I don't need to spend my energy doing that. I can do something else.
Sometimes it's a really big task. Breaking it down helps me to work out, okay, well, I can do that and I can do that. Sometimes you find that there are stages in there that you don't need to do, exactly as you were saying. You were thinking, oh, I need to do this and this, and it's like, oh, actually no, I can miss out stage 3. That's not essential. I can just go straight from 2 to 4. I can't quite think of something that needs that right now, but there certainly have been things in the past. So that's sort of the everyday struggles, which works quite well. The thing I'm struggling with a lot more, and I don't have an answer so much for this, but the thing I really struggle with has been when it's not clear whose responsibility something is. So this is actually why, for me, shipping and fulfillment has been such a difficult thing to get my head round.
Because you're working with others and you're not sure, is this your job or is this my job?
Well, it's because I'm working with other people. Now I am personally, I'm really process driven. So I'm like, okay, what are the steps? Dub, dub, dub. I like to have everything written down. Basically, when I hear it, it doesn't properly go into my memory. So if you say something to me, my ears are not really connected to my brain, basically. So if I don't have it written down, preferably in a nice little table, then it doesn't really exist properly. Which means that, and when it's something like fulfillment, so I am absolutely 100% happy with all of the fulfillment that's going to happen for Library Labyrinth for the UK. I know what's going to do. I'm going to do it. It's going to take a bit of time, but I'm going to be sending out, 400 odd boxes myself, and that's not a problem. Yes, it's going to take a while, but it's quite possible. But with the fulfillment for the United States, we're sending a pallet of games from the factory, so it's Long Pack, which is in China. We're sending it from Long Pack straight to the United States, because it's much cheaper to get a pallet shipped there and then sent out, domestically, than it is to get them shipped here and then send them via airmail. We've got 500 games going to the United States. Well, the United States, well, that's Canada included as well, I think, actually. But there's 500 games. They're going to be shipped from the US, shipped to the US and then posted from there. Now, this is really stressing me out. And although it's fine, it's all under control, there's an element of me not exactly knowing exactly where, who's going to be doing it. There are 3 other people involved, and it just, that whole lots of people involved, not being 100% sure who's got control of everything at any particular moment, that does stress me out.
I can really understand that. I mean, I don't really feel that way. Like for me, I'm quite good at ignoring things and just be like, okay, they've said that they'll get it done, and eventually, someone will get it done. But and a quick hello to Yoda. It's lovely to see you. But I do think that generally, yes, things can go wrong, and there can be a warehouse that suddenly says, you know what, your games weren't selling enough, we're closing down. If you don't get your games out within 2 weeks, then we're going to put them in the dumpster. And that has happened. That's a real world example, and it's not great. You can have examples where stuff goes missing through no faults of your own, but yeah, it's like one of those things when you cross the road, sure, it's really important to look right and look left.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know why you're meant to. Yeah, they say look left, look right, but I think look into the oncoming traffic and then look both ways, basically. Look both ways when
No.
you're crossing the road.
Most people, I think, naturally look right because it's the right hand, I think. Or maybe they're natural. Anyway, there must be some stats on this.
Anyway, the point is that, yes, look both ways, have your eyes open, but there is going to be a bit of danger. And I
Mhm.
think it's kind of like shipping and logistics. You've
Yeah.
just got to kind of accept, yes, there's a bit of danger, and I'm just going to go through it. And yeah. And
There
Alex
are
says, also
risks.
don't look into the sun. And Hope
No,
says, no,
looking
it
into the sun
wasn't a
is a
joke.
bad
That's
idea. You don't want
but
your retinas to be sort of burnt.
um,
Is this a setup for a joke about a chicken? Oh, I don't know. Have you made games about chickens, Bez?
not specifically about chickens yet, but yeah, the point is, like, when you're stressed about these things, it's easy to let that stress paralyze you, and I think that's the important thing, to not
Mm.
let that fear of dying on the streets of London stop you from cycling, because sure, you can
Mhm.
take some minor precautions to lessen your chance of dying, but I think it's important to, if this is something that brings you joy, to still do it, like to still
Mm.
get outside and live your life regardless of the risks, because I mean, to quote the eels, if you're scared of dying, you'd better not be scared to live.
Mm. Just looking at the comments, the ideas about games about chickens. I think maybe you should.
A game about
I
counting
think
your
that's
eggs
quite a
and
good
not
idea.
putting them into a single basket. Hmm.
There's definitely a Bez game in there somewhere. I can see that one. Maybe you could have different colors of eggs or something. I'm just trying to think. You got to count the different eggs because they're different eggs. Maybe you got chicken's eggs, you got ostrich eggs, you got crocodile
I
eggs.
mean, what if you had like each? I'm being very inspired by
Mm.
Coloretto here in our impromptu game design. So, what if you've got a bunch of baskets? Each basket you score for one of the colors of eggs, everything else is negative, and
Mhm.
you're trying to, yeah, set up things in ways that other people, yeah, group the eggs together, do something by annoying other people somehow. I don't know. Um,
Yes.
and at the end of the game, a number of baskets will be tipped over. Mm.
Yeah, but you don't know which. Ooh, randomly. So maybe you've got
And
6 different baskets and then you roll, say, 2 dice at the end or see which are
wait,
gonna be
I
tipped
feel
over.
like by secret votes. Oh, it could be by secret votes. Maybe it's
Ooh!
a game about cuckoos. So like you are all cuckoos. You're all trying to put your there's like
Yeah.
cuckoos go in and then chuck out the eggs of the other birds and then puts in their own eggs. So what's happening is these like X baskets, I don't know how many, they
Mhm.
start with eggs of other birds. And they got flung out and replaced
Yep.
by the cuckoo eggs, which represent individual players. So this is
Mhm.
my egg, this is your egg. Maybe all the cuckoo eggs look identical from the top, but there's a little bit of memory. So the other underside says which
Yeah.
player it's in. So you put it in, and then players are, oh, is this? I think that was more my egg, but it's been a while. Like I'm not quite sure now. And then eventually you kind of have to try and get your stuff into the ones that other people aren't going to vote for. And yeah, maybe one of them by secret votes. I like that. The
This
sad
is
thing is that coming
yeah,
up with game ideas is not the part that's a struggle. And I agree with this
it's
100%.
not.
I could absolutely get a version of this prototyped, for like in
Mhm.
a few hours, if I had people coming over this evening, hypothetically, I don't, by the way, it is
Yeah.
genuinely hypothetical,
But if you
but
did, then you'd basically be
I
able to
I
just
I
draw up
I,
some
no, I
things.
could make
Mm.
something that people would probably enjoy. and it would be a fine starting point. And would
Yeah.
maybe it to be like, oh, that's no, there's nothing really here, but it would be a worthy thing to playtest. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that playtesting is the part that's the joy. I agree. I agree that it's what do you find maybe a little bit less interesting. That's the part that is going to be the struggle.
Yeah. Sometimes you get really repetitive tasks as well. So I've got a Kickstarter coming up soon where I'm doing some new greetings cards. And I've got, one of them is basically a version of the one we saw earlier, and the second one is going to be involving lots of little cakes and desserts and sort of drinks and things, and that's fine. I've got that drawn as well. But the third one, I'm having some trouble drawing it. It's because I'm just trying to work out what style I'm using, and I've got like 3 different styles on this card already, and it's just not coming together. So sometimes there can be something that you enjoy doing, but somehow it's just not working. Though actually the other day I did spend an awfully long time drawing floor tiles and nicely colouring in bricks for this. I've got a dungeon floor plan, and it's going to be a logic card, but it's it's going to be interesting because I'm not quite sure how it's going to end up, and that's
And this
seeming a
is
bit struggly.
like sometimes some people actually find joy in all this content creation of writing the cards or even making the graphics. And for some people, doing that is the joy that allows them to then bring the game to the table. I know for some people, they say, well, I know I'm going to have to redo it, but if I didn't make this look pretty but I mean, that if you're struggling with that first bit in the process, then I always say, well, just lower your standards. That's kind of feels like always the answer. It's always, it's like just if you're printing 50 copies of something, then having a title that's like a front cover that's basically just text. It's not ideal, but it's probably good enough.
It works.
And maybe in future I'd get like the background for like one of the cards, just like so at least the covers look different, because otherwise it's problematic on the table. I want them to at least be different colors in future. But
But
anyway,
at least you need them to be able to recognize which one it is.
yeah, like I mean, from a distance, that's just black text on white background. You can't tell which game it's in. Whereas if it was, had just a background would be enough to distinguish it. But then the point is that sure, sometimes as a self-publisher, you need to be okay again with things not being ideally what you want. And it's easy for me to say, lower your standards, especially when it's not being mass-produced. That's okay. Like, especially when it's a playtest. It's like, what are you really focusing on? I mean, sure, you might want to test this and this and this and that and the other thing, but in reality, if you can only test this and that and learn whether this and that are interesting, whether they have anything going for them, then that's a worthy thing. And I think that's hopefully going to be something that gets you,
Yeah, I mean, actually, lowering your standards, is actually very useful for launching Kickstarters as well, because, you need, because the thing that you put on right at the beginning is not necessarily the thing that's going to be there right at the end. You've got the Kickstarter to refine it and change it and, do the tweaks that make it a little bit better.
I feel like that's a really big topic that I would like to continue in a fortnight, because
Let's do that.
I'm actually wondering whether in a fortnight I'm going to be at Nuremberg, or let me double check the date. Yes, Wednesday next week. Maybe let's I
Let's
think
compare
it's the
diaries and
birthday
talk about
of
this, but yeah.
Nuremberg, so that's a possible no-go. And also 2 weeks after that, I'll be in Germany, but it will be okay. On the 15th
Okay.
will be the next time we chat, if that's okay, Jess.
That's absolutely fine, especially because I think that the 1st of February, I think that's a school strike day as well. Anyway,
But
which means I'll have small children running around.
I think that, yeah, just to give a teaser of what I'm thinking, because I've just decided that, when I say just decided, I don't mean just decided right now. I mean, I have come to the realization that in future, I'm never going to do another Kickstarter unless the main timely deliverable is 100% done. I want myself to have pre-production files ready to send off and be like, this is it, this is the thing. I don't need to worry about making things. It's just going to be, okay, sure, if some big idea comes up, I might release a new set of rules. If it becomes very popular, I might invent new variations, because sure, a game about quickly grabbing cards and judging them against free descriptions, I've kind of been pondering a solo mode for that. If I've got enough of a budget, I might hire someone else to do a really nice, get Paul Grogan, who I know Paul Grogan specializes on heavy, complex strategic games, but get them to do something for a party games, get them to explain how to play whichever game, and they do a great job of it. And some people would appreciate that, because it's yet another person teaching the game, yet another way to do that aftercare. And I think that aftercare is super important. But really, a Kickstarter for me, it's no longer, especially when I'm only printing, when it's a print on demand thing. The truth is, I have, and I don't want to give the illusion that I'm super rich or anything, but when my Kickstarter goal is 500 quid or 1,000 quid, even I have enough money to do that, and that wouldn't cripple me financially for life. I could, whatever my next Kickstarter is, the truth is, I could probably do it right now, financially speaking.
Yeah.
I've gotten to this slightly comfortable space where I'm about getting by, but if I made it and then didn't sell it, it would exist, but that would impact the following thing. So in reality, my Kickstarters aren't about that thing. They're really about my continued growth and my next thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, this is a larger conversation about Kickstarters and about what they're used for, because quite often, you have the money, but you don't know who your audience is. You don't actually know who wants it. Oh, I've got something in my throat. Hang on.
So, yeah, we've had a lot of chat in the comments about this completely different game, about where you shake up and listen to stuff and
shaking penguins. I'm not quite sure about the shaking penguins thing. This all just sounds
it's not
very
for our game,
confusing.
but I quite like our game about the cuckoo. But Alex, going a bit more on Germany, says, if I only had an hour to chop down a tree, I would spend the first 45 minutes sharpening the axe. And possibly the most important thing to do is identify the tasks that are most beneficial to you and forget the rest. And I think, carrying on that analogy, the most important thing to do is deciding whether you're using an axe or hiring a chainsaw.
Something else, a saw or something, yeah.
Honestly, maybe you'd be better off spending half an hour trying to source a chainsaw from somewhere, because I don't know how to sharpen axes. I mean, yeah, chainsaws are pretty dangerous, but
depends. It depends how big the tree is. There are lots of factors here. So so it is really useful to spend some time looking at the problem and saying, actually, for this specific problem, what are we doing? For this specific problem, what should we be putting our energy into?
Yes, exactly. It's about having that right tool for the right job and about that prioritization. I love this. Don't chop me down. I never would. And looking forward to seeing you. For example, is a £500 Kickstarter the best use of your energy? I think so, because yes, I would expect it to hopefully do better than that. And I am able to get a Kickstarter page together in basically a day, and I don't have to spend much. Honestly, while the Kickstarter is running, I find that energizing, is the truth. Nowadays, I mean, the first couple of times I found it kind of stressful, but nowadays I genuinely find it energizing because I get a lot of people to celebrate the thing that I've done. They're all excited about it. That's brilliant. Conversely, if I just put it up on my shop, sure, some people would order it, but then I don't get the comments and stuff. I want people talking about me. I love people talking about me. That's why Kickstarter is brilliant, if I'm being honest.
There is also something about doing lots of small Kickstarters because then you build momentum. Oh, to make rent and stay energized. I mean, that wasn't quite what I was thinking. You know, yeah.
I mean,
but
I'm not really. I mean,
there's
honestly,
a benefit
the problem
to doing
there is that people would get fatigued with my Kickstarters. I wouldn't get fatigued, but other people would not be wanting to spend so much money on me. And also, bundling multiple things together does allow me to, But in reality, I think that we've talked. I think it's time for us to to start slowing down. Do you have a question for us today? Question of the day. Question of the day. Here's a little question before we go on our way. Question of the day. It's okay if you don't.
So I do have a question, which is really about, which I think we need to think about. How many Kickstarters a year is the optimum number of Kickstarters? When we're talking about small Kickstarters, I'm not talking about, ones that are 30,000. I'm not talking about ones which are, hundreds of thousands. I'm talking about sort of, your Bezzy bargain bags, my greetings cards. How many Kickstarters a year is the optimum number? And I think I'm going to say, for me, it's probably 3.
I was thinking a similar thing for me personally, but it matters massively. I mean, it matters like how many games are you making? If I'm making 10 games, the truth is, like, if I were doing 10 games next year, I probably put them into, like, I'm not going to, but
3 or 4 Kickstarters
makes
maybe
a lot more sense for postage. It's about, do you want to bundle things together because maybe this is going to be more efficient in postage? Are you like Bot and Shy do like one thing every single month, which it works for them because it's got some regularity and they're mainly focusing on people within the USA. Good for them. And it's about how much people power do you have? Yes, Kickstarter might give me energy, but it also takes my time. There's no denying that. And sure, while it's running, it's great, but I wouldn't want to do a Kickstarter every month, and I don't even make enough games for that. But I don't feel comfortable coming to a number except I want to say pi now. 3.141596798 Yeah, go on.
That's a good number. It's a good number. Yeah.
So
I think the Christmas card, for me, then it's, say I'm just doing greetings cards, then I think one at Christmas is, what's needed. And then I think one during the spring, Christmas works. And then sort of one during the spring, Valentine's, last year I did Valentine's Day, and that needed to be like really quick on the heels of Christmas, obviously, in order to work, but it did work. And then, or maybe a Mother's Day card. I mean, actually, one of the cards I'm doing in this one, would be a very good Mother's Day card, which is
all dependent on what you've made, because
exactly.
Or if one year you've managed to be super productive and you're like, hey, like, sure, you could do a big bundle of a bunch of things, but then are you taking away from what's special about some of the games? And
possibly.
Are you making other people fatigued? Because how many people are there that really back every Bots and Shy game? Having said that, I'm sure there are a few diehard fans, and even like if there's 50 of them at this point, like that would still be quite a lot. even if there's 2 of them, that would still be amazing, frankly. But because the number of button shy things that exist. But yeah, do you want to make it so that it's achievable for someone to follow you, or do you want to make it so that it's, hey, I'll get some of their stuff, I won't have some, like, what are you expecting? Are you expecting, how much effort do you need to put into them? And is this going to be just a light-hearted Kickstarter that you put out and you don't mind too much what happens? Or is this something where you do actually need, maybe it's something where you could do it, but you think that it's got lots of potential, so you really need to put a lot of effort into the marketing, and like you need to, I don't
No, I
feel
think that's
comfortable
quite
asking
interesting.
someone else.
It's definitely something there. I think maybe for the next time, then I will bring to you a, I mean, clearly heavily edited and completely anonymous, sort of some data, saying, right, this is what the greetings cards backers look like. They tend to be this and this rather than, this. Maybe they're mainly in this country, maybe they're, I mean, mainly look like they, maybe they're people who back a lot of projects, or maybe they're people who only back a few, and I'll see whether there are people who have backed the greetings cards last year and backed them this year, and and that could be quite interesting.
To know your data. Alex says it makes sense to me to run 1 or 2 bigger projects a year rather than lots of little ones. I mean, I think that if there's a reason why my last Kickstarter was for 4 games at once, because it's cheaper to post that way. And I think that that's a model that I would do going forward, but I'm not going to do more than 4 games in one single Kickstarter. That's going to be feels too much, unless it's like through an add-on or something that's already kind of, oh, by the way, there's this extra thing. But yeah, again, it just all depends on how productive you're being. But that's a conversation for another time. And over to you. What are you up to? You can share Botsy if you want to. Today, I definitely have a personal appointment, which, I got it wrong twice, which was really annoying. So Saturday before last, I thought I had this appointment, and then I went in, and they were like, "Oh no, you booked it for next Saturday, but don't worry, you could rebook it for Thursday." And I was, okay, great, I'll rebook it. And then I went online, and then I rebooked it. So I went in on the Thursday, and they were like, "Oh, sorry, you booked it for Friday." And I checked my email, and I'd done something wrongly. And so it was entirely my fault. And so while I was there, they booked it in for me. So now it's for this afternoon. And so that's going to be a thing that I do. Possibly
Third time lucky. Third time lucky. It's going to be the right one.
Done by them rather than, so and just online forms sometimes get me. I'm going to do some, come back and maybe do some emails. You know what I'm going to focus on is getting ready for Bastion, which I'll be going tomorrow. And tomorrow I'll be maybe in the morning just talking very briefly about what Bastion is and the top few things I'm looking forward to. And spoiler, they aren't specific things. They're just like things that might happen, like playing a game that I've never played before. I don't know what that game is. Played like just generic things that I know will happen, and reasons that I love it, and reasons that even though this will probably be my last ever one, I would keep on going if I were to be in the UK.
Yeah.
What are you up
to?
What's everyone else
I've got a list. Okay. So the key things I want to do today is that we've had some. So we've got postcards we need to get done for Library Labyrinth. They're all drawn. The postcards are drawn. I might play around a little bit with the background. I don't think that I've actually put the words on all of them. So it's those like that last 3%, basically, that last 3%, and then send them off and get them printed. And I am also going to be doing more Valentine's Day cards. So they're the same ones I did yesterday. Same ones I did last year, but I just need to reprint more of them, because they were quite successful last year, but I think there's still quite a lot of people out there who might actually quite like them. So I'll get another, 150 or so printed, especially because I'm going off to Paradise, which is Mill's new board game convention, which is being held down in Worthing. So I'm doing that on the 11th of February, which of course the 11th of February is the weekend before Valentine's Day. So I reckon that there'll be a sizable number of people who look at that and go, "Ooh, actually, that would be a good idea to do." So yeah, excellent. That's what I'm doing.
Sate is, I assume, being interviewed by a German podcast, which sounds awesome.
Rather than to be one.
Yes. I mean, if you were interviewed and in the process of becoming a German podcast, and that means that you're no longer a human, that might be a bit sad. But I'm sorry to pick you up on that.
Not brilliant being not human. I mean, it would be a really interesting transformation. It would be a proper metamorphosis.
Like, that is, more abstract than anything Kafka did. When Kafka only turned you into a bug,
only hit
you're turning into a metaphysical being. But anyway, in all seriousness, I hope you enjoy it, and I hope and wish you lots of love. So now's the time when I notice I haven't written as many notes as maybe I should have, but recap and wrap up before we finish up. So to recap, we talked about the notion of struggling, how it's about not wanting to do things, and sometimes that's subconscious, sometimes it's a conscious thing where, yeah, I just don't want to do that thing. Sometimes it's an easy thing. Sometimes we can't catch up. Sometimes it's worth saying, just let's let that go. We talked a lot about time stories, about the Brotherhood of the Coast, and the fact that I'm really hoping to be proven wrong, I'm going to play for the rest of the scenario with my friend, but the way it's leaning is that I'll just end up doing all the games myself, because whilst they're fairly pleasant and are nice storytelling things, it feels to me more something where there's a demand for more of these kinds of things rather than this being superbly done. I mean, there are typos. It's not as if every card is a joy to behold. Do you know what I mean? And I wish there were more pictures that you would really interpret. We talked a little bit about Pandemic Legacy, where because there's not that much role-playing prompts, it doesn't get in the way of that. So if someone wanted to do that, then they could. We talked about the energy of talking to others, like when it energizes you, and understanding what energizes you and trying to be able to analyze the solution. And honestly, sometimes it can feel like, whoa, I really needed people, and now I don't have that person, and so it can be a struggle to build up that framework. But hopefully, in my case, like, it'll, pay for itself, like in energy and whatever. And hopefully for you, Jess, like your lists, this way of working will continue to work out. We talked about having a list of lists, and the answer is just a paperclip, a clothespin.
A clothespin.
We talked about Kickstarters and the idea that Kickstarters might give you energy, and about when you should do Kickstarters and what Kickstarters are really for, and that's a topic that we'll discuss more in 2 weeks. We talked about finding the right tool for the right job. We did a little bit of impromptu game design, and I actually really want to make that game now. I've got a solid vision, so yeah, about this.
You know what it's going to be now.
Yeah, it's a game about cuckoo. It could be a card game. It really wants to be little egg-shaped discs, but I think it would be fine as a card game, and that's going to be one of my new games for UK Games Expo now. I'm not even joking. Unless
no, it'll be good.
Okay, so putting them in, a bit of memory, shuffle them around, and like, okay, let's get rid of that one, and then people vote on things. We talked about Kickstarter bundles, how many Kickstarters, the right amount. We talked about personal appointments, having, missed them a few times. We talked about being interviewed by German podcasts, or, doing those things one by one that really need doing in an organized manner.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, for now, is there anything else that you'd like to say?
I don't think so. I think that was a good recap of everything. Yeah, it's a good wrap up.
Great.
That was it.
Well, I would like to remind people that I am stuffed by Bez in all of the places. If you want to see what I'm up to generally, like what might be on the show, and also where you might be able to see me if you're hunting for me, I'm less and less likely to go to Cannes and Festival this year, is the truth. But all the UK-based conventions and the Irish QCon I'll definitely be going to. So yeah, you can find out on that redirects to a semi-public Google Calendar. Next week, I'm at London Toy Fair. I'm not going on the Tuesday. I'm going on the Wednesday.
I'm going on the Tuesday.
Oh, are you going on the Tuesday? Oh, well.
Yeah, I'm going on. Yeah. The Tuesday is unfortunately the only day I can go because my other half is. So he's going to be away for work the other 2 days. So I have to be back to pick up the kids on the other 2 days.
Sorry, yeah, talking about like building
Not
up
a worry.
networks. Like I've been, yeah, with Kerry, my friend, who's coming over most weeks now. We've been kind of trying to get this weekly thing going at a day that suits both of us. So Tuesday is like the best day for Kerry, and Tuesday Doric can come over again to help with anything that I need. So yeah, it's something that's
Tuesday's your day for things. That's fine. I have days where it's mainly things. Tuesday is often my day for things, actually.
I
Normally
want
I
to
just sit down
have
and do it.
something going on most days, but and like maybe have less than half the days of the week where I don't have like, okay, this is something that's going on. But and I don't actually know this song. Going on a bear's hunt, on a hunt of bears. I don't know what this is.
I'm
But
not scared. What a beautiful day. Oh, look, it's some long, wavy grass. Can't go over it, can't go under it, can't go around it. Gotta go through it. Swish, 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 swish. Bear hunt is a great one. I like a bear hunt. Although it's obviously a bear's hunt.
Did I? Oh, whoops! I meant to put this on all the places, but if you want to check out Jess, where do you like to be found?
So I am normally found most on Twitter. Come and find me there. But I'm also on Facebook. We do have a Descent Games Facebook page, and we do have a Descent Games Library Labyrinth page. Just search for those. But if you specifically want to look for things I'm doing, go to descentgames.com because there's various links to things there as well. So that's probably the best place.
And I just want to say to everyone, yeah, share, spread the word. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for all the lovely comments. It's always lovely to have a bit of chat and see lovely people interacting with each other. And thank you for being here and making this, joining me essentially in my living room, I guess. Yeah.
Your stock room, it is. Your room with
the last thing I want to say is lots of love and bye, bye. Bye, bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, bye, everyone. Bye-bye.